As we know, conjunctivitis is one of the most common ailments we encounter in the OPD. And as far as we are concerned, it is the bread and butter of the ophthalmic practice. Though its diagnosis and management may seem simple on the surface, there are several nuances to it, especially in the current scenario when coronavirus is on rampage. So to enlighten us on how to safely diagnose and manage conjunctivitis in the present scenario, we have with us today Dr. Sujit Nayanar. Dr. Sujit is a senior cornea, refractive and anterior segment surgery consultant, specialty Malabar Eye Hospital and Aster MIMS, Kozhikode. Some of the highlights of his stellar career include MD and senior residency from RP Center, several fellowships and observerships in some of the internationally acclaimed centers, including the University of Helsinki and the Bascom Palmer Eye Institute, several publications in international peer-reviewed journals, and he has also authored many chapters in postgraduate textbooks. So, without wasting further time, I'll hand over to Sujit. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prashop. Good evening, everybody. Can I share the slides now? Yeah. Okay, sir. Is it visible?
Yeah, it's visible now.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. Thank you, KSOs, for giving me this opportunity. And as Prashop has already introduced, the topic is managing conjunctivitis in COVID times. Yeah. So to just give an overview of acute conjunctivitis, it's nothing new to us, and all of us are practicing, and all of us are seeing a lot of conjunctivitis cases, and it's summer, and summer we get a lot of cases, but unfortunately we are not able to do a routine OP these days. So many of these cases are getting, either they are not coming to the doctors or over phone, they may be contacting you. So as an overview, the acute conjunctivitis, most common one, what we see is viral conjunctivitis. So among viral conjunctivitis, almost 90% or more may be adenoviral conjunctivitis, and the rest may be herpes etiology. As per the literature, next comes the bacterial conjunctivitis with all those yellowish discharge and all those things. Then comes the allergic conjunctivitis. So coming to the most common conjunctivitis that we see in the OP, that is viral conjunctivitis. And again, the most common presentation is a follicular conjunctivitis, vary from mild to severe in its presentation. It can have associated fever and pharyngitis, which is not uncommon, and it can also have a tender preauricular node in almost 30 to 50% of cases. It normally starts unilaterally and subsequent becomes a bilateral spread. And it has two clinical variants, like one is a pharyngoconjunctival fever with abrupt onset of high fever and pharyngitis with bilateral conjunctivitis with tender preauricular lymph node enlargement. And the second one is the most common one, what we see is epidemic keratoconjunctivitis, which is more severe with a watery discharge, hyperemia, chemosis, and same ipsilateral lymphadenopathy. You can see a few presentations I have marked in red. And these are the overlapping, or I would say these are the presentations which we see in conjunctivitis of COVID patients as well. So we'll come into more details about those presentations. Regarding management of viral conjunctivitis, I need not stress too much that we need not do anything at all other than reassure the patient. The mainstay of treatment is symptomatic and frequent eye wash, lid hygiene, hand hygiene, copious lubricants, and these are the mainstay of treatment. Nothing we need to do. It takes its own time to resolve, and we all know that it's a self-limiting disease. our role is mainly to look into the complications that may happen, that like keratitis, or if there is any pseudomembrane formation or secondary infection like that. Antibiotics, as per literature, is not indicated in the case of viral conjunctivitis, but most of us do prescribe antibiotics to prevent secondary infections. Coming to the bacterial conjunctivitis, antibiotics is the mainstay of treatment, and if you have a facility for conjunctival swab, you take a swab and start the antibiotics, or go for a dose-setting antibiotics, lubricants, and personal ocular hygiene. In this scenario of a summer season, I think we see more of allergic conjunctivitis than a bacterial conjunctivitis. And the redness and itching may be the most consistent symptoms along with it. And it is always better to start with an antihistamine drops and lubricants, because it may not settle with antihistamine drops. You may need steroid preparations also, but in this era of telemedicine, it's not good to start steroids directly, because we don't know really whether it is an allergic conjunctivitis or not. Coming to the actual topic of conjunctivitis in the scenario of COVID. And this is a very scary thing, that the COVID-19 dashboard. This was taken by me at 1 o'clock, and I'm sure these values might have changed by now. Yesterday, even during preparing my presentation, over a period of one and a half hours, almost 1,500 deaths was there in extra. I mean, from what I saw in the beginning. But something you can see at the end, like in India, and when you take Kerala, we are lucky to be more in a very safer place. We have just 138 active cases as of now. So the questions to be answered here in this scenario of COVID is, as an ophthalmologist, are we more susceptible to this disease? What are the ocular symptoms reported in COVID-19? Are SARS-CoV-2 RNA detected in tears or conjunctiva? Can the disease be transmitted through contact with ocular tissues? And what precautions are we supposed to take? So as we move along the presentation, I'll be answering all these questions. So what the public knows about this disease and eye is that many papers have already reported that eye can also be infected. You can see that this is I think it was reported in Times yesterday or before. The eye, you can have a red eye. So those who have read this and they're having either a viral conjunctivitis or an allergic conjunctivitis will be more cautious now. They may come to you for a treatment. They may call you for an opinion. And why we, as ophthalmologists, we are more concerned is because, as you all know, the whistleblower for COVID, Li Wenliang, was just a 34-year-old an ophthalmologist who seems to have got an COVID infection from an asymptomatic COVID patient with acute angle closure glaucoma. And he is the person who let the world know that something like this is happening. And this is the same risk we are all facing, because we may be seeing more and more asymptomatic carriers in the next coming days. And we are not sure whether there is no actual evidence coming up. We will be talking about it later, whether the ocular surface or ocular fluid transmission of viral particles is a truth or a myth. There's another interesting story regarding the conjunctivitis part. His name is Guangfa Wang. I'm not sure whether I'm pronouncing it right or not. He's also a Chinese, I think, an epidemiologist, and he's, I think, a well-known person there, who was a superhero in the 2003 SARS epidemic. He went to one area of fever clinic. He spent a few days in mid-January. He came back. He was using all the personal protection things and N95 mask, everything. And when he came back to his native place, after a few days, he started having a conjunctivitis. And after starting conjunctivitis, about 2 weeks later, he had pneumonia, and he was tested positive for COVID. That's when he actually reported that this conjunctivitis could be a first sign of a COVID infection. And this was reported in Lancet as that the ocular surface must not be, the COVID transmission through ocular surface must not be ignored. So what are the possible ocular presentations? This is a very good report in BJO, which was released very recently, which reported ocular manifestation of a hospitalized confirmed patient of a COVID-19 right from day one to complete resolution. So let us see what are the symptoms the patient actually had. The patient had conjunctival congestion, foreign body sensation, and tearing. These are the actual photographs of photographs of that patient are reported in BGO. The signs were bilateral moderate congestion, watery discharge, inferior palpebral congestion with conjunctival follicles, and tender palpebral preauricular nodes. So from what we know, these are all very classical signs of a viral conjunctivitis, which can happen even with an adenoviral conjunctivitis. So there is nothing specific for COVID-19 conjunctivitis. We may easily mistake, we can, that adenoviral conjunctivitis may be mistaken for an COVID-19 conjunctivitis associated with COVID-19. This patient was treated with ribavirin eye drops, and he was also on systemic lopinavir and ritonavir oral. I'm unable to move the slides. So, is there any change in the settings? Yeah, okay. So this is a timeline chart from that same article, right from day one when the patient became symptomatic to the last day when he actually became asymptomatic. So when you look at the ocular findings, the red eye, tearing, and foreign body sensation are the three findings, and he became symptomatic on day 13, day 8. This is day 8 of hospitalization. Day 13, after the actual symptom, the first symptom to start was sore throat and diarrhea, and on day 13, his ocular symptoms started with redness, tearing, and foreign body sensation. Redness persisted for 5 days, tearing for 2 days, and foreign body sensation for 3 days. And by fifth day after the onset of the symptoms, his ocular problems got resolved. So started by 13th day, resolved in 5 days, and 19th day, they actually did conjunctival swabs for viral RNA PCR, and it was positive on 13th day, 14th day, 17th day, and 19th day. The viral load was consistently decreasing as the patient was symptomatically improving. And by 19th day, the conjunctival RNA was not detectable. And they also detected that the nasopharyngeal swab was having a much higher viral load than the conjunctival swab. They did a non-mediatic, they used a non-mediatic camera and checked the fundus as well, but the fundus was quite normal. Before this report was published, this was the report that came in JAMA, was the report which was showing some, throwing some light on the ocular symptoms in COVID. They had only 38 patients which were detected in the first or second week of February. They were evaluated for the ocular involvement. What they could see was that only 12 patients out of 38 was positive for ocular symptoms, and of those patients, the conjunctival swab was positive only in 2 patients. Rest all the conjunctival swabs were negative, whereas the nasopharyngeal swabs were positive. So they concluded that the chance of ocular symptoms are almost 31% with same hyperemia, epiphora, and ecchymosis. Only 12 patients were having ocular symptoms. The swab was positive, only 2 patients. And of these, 8 of 12 patients were having severe or critical pneumonia. So they concluded that this happens in the severe stage. The ocular involvement happens in the severe stage, but there was one patient who presented as epiphora as the first symptom of COVID. And another important observation was none of these patients had experienced blurring of vision. And there was some other lab correlation also, like those with the ocular symptoms were having high blood vessel, high WBC count and neutrophil count, higher level of calcitonin, C-reactive protein was higher, and LDH was higher. I don't know the clinical relevance of those. Another case report, case series was of almost 1,000 patients, in which the conjunctival congestion was the only feature that was reported, and it was almost 0.8%, 9 cases reported during the last week of February. ICMR came out with a report, but in this report there is no mention of ophthalmics. They had there's some disturbing audio coming on. So in the ICMR report, there is from the Indian patients, there is no report of any ophthalmic symptoms or signs. And now we have almost 10 patients with COVID positive in isolation at Kozhikode Medical College, and none of them also reported any ocular symptoms, and no conjunctival swabs were taken. I spoke to the physician and the nodal officer there. Actually, they are not very aware of the conjunctival involvement, so they actually didn't look into it. But when I spoke to them, they told that as of now, there are no ocular symptoms. So a summary of like how symptoms appear, when you look at when you consider this as the onset point and 14 days of incubation period, the first report actually happened during the incubation period, that is before the onset. And then there was case reported at day 3, day 13, and day 17. So what we can understand is even before the onset of the disease, you can have, and it can have at any point of time during the next 2 or 3 weeks. So is there any actual ocular surface transmission? This is still controversial. There is no 100% confirmation on it. But why do we suspect an ocular transmission? This is because it has been found that the COVID-19 virus gets into the cell with the help of an ACE2 receptors and angiotensin converting enzyme 2 receptors. So these receptors are already there in the eye, in retina and aqueous humor, but it is not seen it is not documented clearly in cornea and conjunctiva. So we are not sure whether the conjunctival and corneal route of infection is possible or not. Then lacrimal sac. So you can have a lot of these viruses in your nasal cavity and throat, and they can travel along your nasolacrimal duct and go and sit in the lacrimal sac and then infect your conjunctival sac. This is one hypothesis. Another is direct aerosol transmission to the conjunctiva. And for this, from the contact from our own, a patient's contaminated hand by directly touching the eyes. Few reports of assessing the viral shedding. This is a report from American Academy of Ophthalmology, a study done in Singapore. Almost 17 patients were positive for the PCR of nasal swab, and almost 64 samples taken from the tears were all negative. And they concluded that the transmission through the tears chances are low. Another report from the Journal of Medical Virology, they studied 30 patients, of which only one patient had conjunctivitis, and they showed that the patient having conjunctivitis, they could detect the RNA from the through PCR technique in the conjunctival sac, whereas there is no virus detected in the conjunctival sac in the patient without conjunctivitis. So recommendation as of now from American Academy of Ophthalmology is the chances of contamination through tears or conjunctival contact is less. But still, the risk is there. So we have to take all necessary precautions. And as of now, we have to treat these patients as potentially contagious through eye, and we have to take all the necessary precautions while dealing with such patients. So what are the possibilities of transmission? So it can be through the direct contact with the ocular surface, conjunctiva or tears. It can be due to the close interaction with the patient. It can be like because of you're spending more time with the patient in the room or the waiting area, or it can be due to the aerosol transmission when the patient talks or coughs in front of you while you're doing a slit lamp examination or a fundus examination or performing any procedures. Or maybe there is some unknown modes of transmission also. So that is where the importance of triage comes in. IGO April issue has come up with an article, an editorial article regarding COVID and the problems. This is taken from that article, and this is based on the experience from the Hong Kong. So as per this triage, the patient attending the ophthalmic clinic first undergoes a screening for the fever. If there is no fever, they will be taken for this travel, occupation, contact, and clustering history will be taken. If both there is no fever, there is no contact history, then you can take routine precautions and you can observe the patient, examine the patient. But if the patient is positive for fever, and if there is an emergency, you have to use a PPE kit while examining this patient. This is, you have to use a PPE kit. But if there is no emergency, you can defer the consultation as of now. And if there is no fever, but there is the talk history is positive, and you have emergency, then again, it's like you have to use PPE kit or you defer the checkup for another 2 weeks. Here, one problem, this is from the Hong Kong experience. One problem what we have seen is, like, if you have any fever or travel history, every patient you're supposed to use a PPE kit, and which is quite less in numbers, and I don't think our standalone eye hospitals will be having PPE kits. So what I have been doing, or I've been planning to do, is like this. For the triage for the appointment patients. Appointment patients are those who call with symptoms of red eye. Your old patients may call you, like they may be having symptoms, right? And review them through phone. Use telemedicine options. You have to rule out all other causes of red eye. Try to get a photograph of the. Ask the patient to take a photograph of the eye and just WhatsApp to you or any other mode of communication. Get yourself convinced that there's a possible cause is conjunctivitis. Then prescribe. You can all those lubricating drops or antibiotics or eye hygiene measures you can prescribe over phone. You can ask the patient to periodically review over phone, and you can ask the patient to review in OP 2 or 3 weeks later, or SOS if in clinic, if you see that the patient is complaining of more symptoms or your initial treatment is not working or the patient is having drop in the vision. And when the patient comes to you directly and you're having a physical examination, then you have to use all the mandatory safety precautions while examining. And the role of telemedicine, these are all examples of patients who contacted me in the last 1 or 2 days with symptoms of conjunctivitis. And in this one particular patient, she actually over phone told me about red eye, and it happened to be a scleritis with some sort of keratitis. So this we have to be very important. We have to rule out all other grievous causes of red eye before telling your treatment conjunctivitis, prescribing a conjunctivitis treatment. Obviously, this uveitis, scleritis, keratitis, acute congestive glaucoma, and if it is a postoperative patient of yours, you have to also rule out any possible complication, including an infective etiology. American Academy has recommended that if you see ominous signs of following these, like visual loss, severe pain, purulent discharge, suspected corneal involvement, conjunctival, severe conjunctival membrane or lid swelling, lack of response to your initial therapy, contact lens wearers, and patients who may require steroids, or patients with extreme photophobia, you may have to call them to your office for physical examination. So when such patient comes to your office or a walk-in patient comes with a conjunctivitis history, what you do? So first of all, you have to, I think most of you may be having a triage at the reception area, maintaining a distance and mandatory protective measures, which has been very beautifully put out by the KSOS. And I think you all have a copy of it. So after that triage, in the triage, you look for, again, the talk history, the fever, throat pain. If it is a walk-in patient, I'm telling, all those things you have to see, non-contact thermal scan. If it becomes positive and you feel that it is not an urgent need for an ophthalmic consultation, you have to refer the patient to the fever clinic and refer any immediate eye examination. But if you feel like that it looks like an urgent examination, then obviously you have to use a PPE kit if all these things are positive. But all these things are negative and you're just looking at a conjunctivitis patient that just walked into your clinic. Then probably you can take some risk and check the patient, because you don't want that patient to, you cannot just blandly talk over face to just go back. I cannot see you because you have opened your clinic, you're sitting there. So these are some instructions which I have been following. You can follow the patient to follow some special instructions, which includes like patient should definitely wear a mask. He should wash his hands at the entry point. The doors of your consultation room should be open with the AC off. You can ask the complaints to the patient when the patient is standing outside the room. You can provide footwear covers for them or ask them to remove the footwear before entering into your room. No bystander is allowed. I have removed all the extra chairs provided in the consultation room other than the slit lamp chair. So once the patient is inside, you directly make him sit in the slit lamp, and you can mark the areas on the slit lamp table where they can rest their arms or hands. And a torchlight examination is good enough if you're looking at a case of conjunctivitis. You can ask the patient, like in this photograph, you can ask the patient to pull the lid down rather than you doing it to avoid an unnecessary contact with the patient, and avoid all conversations while the patient is seated on a slit lamp chair. Because American Academy is believing that our conversation or talk with the patient during examination is causing more problems rather than the direct contact with the conjunctiva or the tears. So once the examination is over, you can ask the patient to again go back and stand outside the door, and while you're writing the prescription and giving them the instructions. So once you have done that, along with that, you have to use definitely your mandatory precautionary measures for the doctors and staff. I'll be coming to it in one of the later slides. And then review the patient over phone periodically and review the patient maybe 2 or 3 weeks later or SOS if any vision drop or any of the ominous signs comes. So what are the precautions as healthcare professionals we should take? So these are the mandatory protective measures we are supposed to take, which includes our goggles, triple layered mask or an N95 mask with a face shield, and a protective shield for the slit lamp. PPE should have a protective, the goggles should is a very mandatory requirement for all of us, including the staff and the doctors. That is very important. That Lancet article clearly says that you can have even an aerosol transmission to your conjunctiva. As the patient talks, the aerosol may happen, and that can land in your conjunctiva and can cause a transmission of the disease. So mandatory requirement is goggle as well as the face shield. I'll just play a video here.
Takes 10 seconds. Take a sheet of acetate. Pull out slit. Slit should be about 9 inches for 10 seconds. Active partners with surgery exclude cells outside. The mask is to be worn inside the plastic sheet. Adjust it over the center of the mouth. You can add protective layer. After making the slit, two short clips at the top. This is facing down. Slits over the side so that there's security skin is necessary. Subsection. Proper medical. Still subsection.
So something is better than nothing. So, but you have actually, you can see the studs is providing such shields for the doctors, healthcare professionals. And also the N95. This is just one address which I could just share. No financial interest. I know there are more local providers for this, and you may be having details of them. And same scale of protection should be given to your assistant, which includes the mask, N95 if possible, and goggles and gloves. These three are must. And dress code, it has been clearly said in the KSO's report that about the details of the dress code that should be followed in such situations. And this is one extreme level of caution which I saw in one of the, my friend's recent change in the clinic he has done. He has just moved his slit lamp to the door, and he has put a plastic sheet such that it covers the entire door. And the patient will be sitting on one side and the doctor on the other side. There is absolutely no contact or chance of aerosol transmission. Becomes difficult in cleaning after every patient. So I don't know whether it is recommended or not. I just thought of sharing it for your information. This we have already discussed. And environmental cleaning and disinfection recommendations is clearly given in the KSO's the recommendation practice guidelines. So if you see that if your patient who came for a conjunctivitis checkup turns positive after a few days, so what can you do? So obviously we cannot do anything. We have to go for a quarantine and self-isolation. So it is better you keep records of the staff on duty every day. Like you should know who all should go on quarantine and self-isolation. Most of us are calling staff in batches, so that if one batch goes, maybe the other batch can help you. And you have to observe for any known symptoms of COVID, and if indicated, you have to inform the health department and request for screening test as per the availability. So some take-home message is that conjunctivitis may be the first symptom of COVID-19. Patients, it can present at any stage of COVID-19, right from the incubation period to the second or third week of after the onset of the illness. Patients with conjunctivitis, COVID-19 conjunctivitis, have transmissible virus in the tears. Transconjunctival aerosol infection is a known mode of disease transmission, and asymptomatic patients with COVID-19 or patients in the incubation period can transmit the disease, and close contact during ophthalmic procedures has the high risk of patient-ophthalmologist disease transmission. So I think we have answered all these questions. Are we more susceptible? Yes. What are the ocular symptoms? We already discussed. Most common is just like a viral conjunctivitis, a follicular conjunctivitis, or an epiphora, or a mild watery discharge. Are they detected in tears? Yes. In patients with conjunctivitis, they are definitely detected in tears, but in asymptomatic patients or COVID patients without conjunctivitis, it's still not very clear. Can the disease be transmitted through contact with ocular tissue? Yes, as of now, we have to take that. It can be contracted through ocular tissue. And what precautions we already discussed. And I think KSOS has come out, AOS and KSOS has both come out with a very good practical guidelines, which we have to follow in our day-to-day practice. Thank you very much. Yes. So ocular hygiene, definitely, I think the hand hygiene must be the first. First, you should have a hand hygiene, then go for the ocular hygiene. The hand you use to wash your eyes or the water you use to wash your eyes is definitely important, because if you don't have a proper hand hygiene, then definitely you are going to have more problems with that. So this soap and water cleaning of hands and social distancing, everything, I think these people are already accepted, and we need to add little more things to it. I am not very sure about it, sir. I have not heard about it also before. I think it may be it's like our what do you call they may be reconstituting it from some injection like what we do for vancomycin or ceftriaxone. I have to actually search for it. I never used it before.
Yes, sir. Prashobia.
Yeah, Prashant.
Hello.
Yeah, Prashant.
Yeah. What about membranes, pseudomembranes, and all in a regular patient with conjunctivitis? Do you not remove them now, or should you avoid it?
See, even in a non-COVID situation, it's a controversial thing because many people don't remove it. Some people remove it. I'm among the group who removes it. But in this situation of COVID, probably mild pseudomembrane, I think we can ask them to use some ointment and get away with if it is not too much symptomatic. But if you have very, very swollen lids and this thing, probably we may have to take that risk. And in that case, as per the current recommendation, we have to use full PPE kit for that.
The other thing is to get to a diagnosis.
Patient may scream, patient may cough, or some patient even can have a vasovagal attack and they may just fall down because of the pain and all those things. So you don't know what all types of contact you are going to have during such a procedure. So it is better, as per the current recommendation in this situation, if you want to do a membrane peeling, you have to use a total PPE kit.
To diagnose the membrane itself, you have to what, right?
Yes. Upper lid, we have to avert. At least lower lid, we can ask the patient to do it for us. Actually.
Dr. Sujit, I am Dr. Sabita.
Yes, madam.
This ordinary examination gloves, they are very small. Now it is just near the wrist only. Is there any examination gloves better than that? It's a little longer.
I think most of us are using the same gloves only, ma'am. Long gloves, I'm not very aware. Whatever is being provided to us in the hospital, everything is the same gloves.
And should we change it after every patient? Should we change the gloves?
Ideally, yes. For our safety, probably we can wash with sanitizer, but we don't know whether we will be cross-infecting the next patient. So we should change it between the patients.
This gardening gloves, some longer type is available, isn't it? That for gardening and all, bigger one size is there, no?
Maybe, ma'am, we can try. Like what you see in that my friend did that for his clinic. Everybody is becoming innovative, so something new is being tried by everyone. So,
okay.
As per the current recommendation, everything they have given. I mean, the normal gloves only they have recommended.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Stop sharing. Yes, sir. Yes, I've stopped it. Yeah.
So is it always bilateral or unilateral? What is the incidence like?
I think it is. They have not specifically few reports. Only 3 reports I have specifically looked into, ma'am. They have not specifically mentioned, but this one full case report which I have presented, it is bilateral. The other 2 cases they have just mentioned ocular symptoms, not one eye or both eye. They have not mentioned.
Thank you.
Sir, Prashov here again. Yeah, just one question.
Yes, Prashant.
When you're using full PPE, suppose you are wearing a full PPE to examine a conjunctivitis patient closely, can you continue wearing the PPE for the next few patients, or you have to change it?
Ideally, we have to change it, Prashant. As far as my understanding is that you have to change it, because otherwise you will be cross infecting your next patient. It's just not your safety that we are looking at. You have to even be seeing one or two other patients also. So that is the main problem with this PPE. Unless we are, you really need it better as per the IGO guidelines, which was taken from the Hong Kong experience. We cannot go with the PPE for every patient. You don't have that much of supply even in the best of the hospitals. So you can't expect that. And for the N95 mask, I think they can be reused, and then I think most of you are aware of it. It can be sterilized and reused, but the PPE kit, I don't think there is any recommendation for reuse.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Sujit. Dr. Sujit.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Yes. I would like to know how many of us, as ophthalmologists, have had to treat conjunctivitis in Kerala with COVID.
Ma'am, I think Suma Madam is here. The best person is Suma Madam, because all our COVID patients are in medical college. They don't, positive patients, at least they are concentrated in one place. So we don't happen to see them in any private hospital. So actually, I was talking with my friend in the Department of Medicine yesterday, whether they had any ocular symptoms, but they are least bothered about the eye. They are looking at all those CT scans and X-rays and chest and all those things. So I was just thinking whether Department of Ophthalmology, Medical College can, but the risk is involved.
Yes.
You can just do some conjunctival swabs of those 10 patients and see if PCR can be done. For an academic interest, we can do. I think.
Any corneal involvement?
Yes, sir. Yes. PCR they can get it done. So it's not PCR. I think they can manage to do it.
Suppose a patient comes with conjunctivitis. Is it okay if we ask them to go and have the medical treatment in the medical side and give some antibiotic drops and ask them to come after 1 or 2 weeks or even more?
Ma'am, unless if they have any sort of travel history or that contact history or fever or nothing, then it's not fair to ask them, because if they go to a medical side, they won't be getting a proper treatment. Actually,
I mean a suspect. That is
a suspect means then by maintaining the distance also you can just prescribe them the routine. This hygiene things and lubricants and all those things, and tell them the prime thing is go to a fever clinic and get yourself checked.
That is true, but
real suspect.
Have a follow-up after 1 week, or do you
follow-up also? See, it is once the patient has come to you, you can very easily ask them to follow up over phone or telemedicine. Actually, okay. You just need to look at the recovery, what he is having, or if at all, if any membrane or something is coming. If it is worsening, probably then you may have to see.
Okay.
But if it is a really suspected case, then better not to call for call to the clinic for a follow-up. You can always maintain that contact over phone. All those photographs which I have shown are, they call me for red eye only, and all those photos were sent through the WhatsApp only. I'm sure most of you may be getting such photos in the morning.
Yes.
Every day.
Thank you.
The actual risk is 1.5%, sir. 1%. So in Kerala, if we don't have patients coming from outside Kerala, then out of this 138, or even if you take as 150 cases, 1.5 patient is at risk of having conjunctivitis. Only that much you have. But if you take all those patients who are under observation, or maybe what is the right, actual numbers, I don't know right now, who are under observation or quarantine, 1% of those patients may be having an ophthalmic symptoms. That's what the current studies show. But we are not aware of asymptomatic patients who may be coming to us in the next few weeks. Thank you, sir. There's no other work now, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.